Hello, I'm Andrew Pritchard, and thank you for watching today's Corn Belt Regional Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. So checking with the jet stream here early on Tuesday morning, really watching this shortwave trough making its way through the northern plains into the Midwest for the most active weather over the next 24 to 48 hours. Going to be bringing the chance for some thunderstorms, maybe some severe weather, parts of the Great Lakes and parts of the Midwest, the Eastern Corn Belt as we head through the afternoon today. As we look at the next 10 days in terms of our temperature anomalies, we're continuing to see warmth off to the west with cooler temperatures across the Corn Belt over the next 5 days, but we're going to see a shift in the jet stream. It's going to allow a little bit of warmth to build back into the middle part of the country here as we kind of build a trough into the west with a ridge kind of building into the central U.S., which is a look that we haven't seen for a little while. It might not be permanent here across the region, but still at least going to be looking at some warmth coming into the region here around September 9th through the 13th. That's also a pattern that could bring some active weather back to the central U.S. But over the next week, really watching this corridor off to the north across the Dakotas into the Great Lakes. For the most frequent precipitation activity, it's going to be drier. Once this front gets through the eastern Corn Belt, going to be drying out there over the next 4 to 5 days. But again, looking ahead to week 2, perhaps turning active once again across the middle part of the country. As we look at the last 24 hours, we've seen some thunderstorms racing across the Dakotas into the upper Midwest, producing some hail as they did so. Looking at hail anywhere from maybe an inch to an inch and a half in a very narrow corridor here where some of those stronger thunderstorms tracked. We can see those ongoing across parts of Wisconsin, parts of northern Illinois. As we check in with the satellite here, again, early on Tuesday morning. And then we've got Dorian off here towards the bottom right, which really just not moving at all for the last 24 hours or so. A really tragic situation unfolding across the Bahamas. But as we talk about the mainland here across the central U.S., it's this frontal boundary right here. We'll be watching for the development of some thunderstorms that are, again, ongoing right now across parts of northern Illinois, parts of Wisconsin, but potentially watching for those to flare back up across this region as we head through the later parts of the day. Looking at the radar picture then right now, here are those showers and storms, again, widespread across much of Wisconsin into parts of northern Illinois here early on Tuesday morning. We'll watch for, again, these to perhaps continue on for several more hours as they move eastward across parts of northern Illinois into Michigan, but then watching this general area for thunderstorms to flare back up as we head through the afternoon and the evening. Now, a closer look here, we've even got a severe storm kind of embedded on the back side here, which is a bit unusual to see the stronger storms kind of lingering off toward the back. It's typical in a setup like this that we'd see the strongest storms off to the leading edge here along the front here. But again, a strong storm kind of embedded back in there. So some heavy rain, maybe some large hail, some gusty winds across parts of southern Wisconsin, parts of northern Illinois. These can sometimes leave an outflow boundary kind of lingering off behind there, which could maybe serve as a focal point for additional storms to develop later on the day across parts of southern Iowa into parts of central Illinois. And again, perhaps these storms could continue on across parts of Michigan and Indiana as we head through the later part of the day as well. Looking at the frontal picture here Tuesday morning, here is the storm system creating the precipitation here across the Great Lakes, parts of the upper Midwest. It's the center of low pressure right across the Minnesota and Manitoba border, with this frontal boundary extending off to the south there across parts of Minnesota and Iowa and Nebraska this morning, which will continue off to the southeast, reaching parts of Wisconsin, Iowa, and northern Illinois later on today. Again, that would be the focal point for those thunderstorms perhaps later on today, developing across parts of the Midwest. As we look ahead to Thursday, now this frontal boundary continues to move off and then sink to the south, leaving high pressure across the Corn Belt. Again, this is what expected to cool us down, quiet us down as we head to the middle part of the week, mid to late part of the week. Then watching our next storm system developing across the northern plains. Again, this is going to be the corridor for the most frequent shower and storm activity over the next week or so here across parts of the Dakotas, parts of the upper Midwest, as we watch for our next storm system to emerge from the high plains. The severe weather outlook for the next 3 days. Again, today, watching this frontal boundary across parts of the Great Lakes, parts of the eastern Corn Belt, a slight risk for some strong storms across parts of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. Going to be a chance for some large hail, damaging winds, and the chance for a couple isolated tornadoes across this region. Again, Tuesday afternoon, evening, and early overnight. Heading into the day Wednesday and then Thursday, very low severe weather risk. We'll be watching for the high plains for chances for scattered storms, but again, a very low severe weather risk in that area if any severe risk is going to materialize at all. Now we'll take a look at the high-res rapid refresh or the HER model. This will take us through the day today. Again, taking a look at the ongoing storms across parts of the upper Midwest. As we can play this out, we'll bring it back and we'll step through time, watching how this model kind of handles thunderstorms developing later on this afternoon and evening. Now, the HER is a little bit more sparse, a little more isolated with its thunderstorm activity along the front as we head through the afternoon and evening. There you see some storms starting to flare up there along the front across parts of southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, and into Michigan and Indiana as we head through the afternoon and evening tonight. And again, these would be the storms that would have that risk for some severe weather, some large hail damaging winds, maybe a couple of tornadoes as we head through the afternoon and the evening and then into the early overnight. And of course, Dorian, the eye candy on the weather maps today. The high-resolution NAM model, this one a little bit more gung-ho about the thunderstorm activity across parts of the eastern Corn Belt, talking about Illinois specifically, a little bit more widespread here. And so we'll take it through the day. Now, worth noting, as we look at this weather model's forecast for 4 and 5 a.m., big hole right there where there's actually a lot of shower and thunderstorm activity ongoing. So already a little bit of a trust issue with this model since it doesn't have the picture correct as it starts. We have to really question how much we trust it off into the future if it doesn't necessarily know what's going on right now. As it is, we'll take it out. We'll kind of play this thing through the mid part of the day into the early afternoon. Again, understanding that we can't take this as straight gospel, but it does as we head into the late evening, into the early overnight, break thunderstorms out again along this frontal boundary, where we'd have the low risk for a few severe storms as well across parts of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan primarily. Now, as we take this out through the rest of the model term here, or the period, I'm looking for a certain word there and I'm not finding it, but taking it out through the day on Thursday, you can see this frontal boundary moves off to the south. We get high pressure on the backside, really quieting things down as we head through the day on Wednesday. And then into the day on Thursday, this is when we'll watch this corridor up here, really watching the Dakotas into parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin for any activity as we head through the later part of the week across much of the Corn Belt. As we look at the eastern Corn Belt into the Central Plains, really going to be quiet as we head into the weekend. Total accumulated precipitation from the high-resolution NAM model. Again, here you see those thunderstorms as we head through the later part of the day on Tuesday, but otherwise quiet across the Corn Belt as we head all the way through 1 p.m. on Thursday. This frontal boundary also bringing yet another reinforcing shot of some milder and less humid air. As we play this loop, you see that frontal boundary kind of scooting on through the Corn Belt, bringing in, again, relief in the form of some lower dew points. We'll go ahead and play this out through the day on Tuesday. Here is the frontal boundary making its way across the region. That's where we would expect those thunderstorms to develop along that front as it pushes into Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. And then bringing in that much drier, much less humid air into the Corn Belt as we head into Wednesday and Thursday. Dew points plunging back into the 40s and 50s across the region, which is again going to lead to crisp overnights and some mild, pleasant afternoons. Where are we going as we head into the next week or so? Well, I mentioned we're going to be watching for a change in the pattern, something we haven't seen for some time. As we head through the weekend, watching this ridge kind of start to reestablish across the western U.S., before it starts to migrate off to the east. And this is what I was talking about, this trough west, ridge east look, which brings cooler temperatures to the west, but then going to allow some warmth to build back into the middle part of the country across a big chunk of the Corn Belt. And this also could set up a pattern that leads to the development of one or more storm systems across the central U.S., perhaps bringing an active pattern here with some rain and storms back into the central plains, into the Midwest and the eastern Corn Belt. Again, I mentioned over the next week, really watching the northern plains into the upper Midwest, but it's as we get a look like this, perhaps heading into next week, this is beyond September 10th, perhaps turning warmer and more active across the central United States, something we're going to have to kind of watch closely with our trends as we head through this week. Taking a look then at the GFS, kind of taking it long term, we'll see this first front kind of move through the region here Tuesday. We've already covered this in depth with our high resolution models. High pressure sets in as we head into the middle to later part of the week, quieting it down, cooling it off across a big chunk of the Corn Belt, and then we continue to watch if anywhere is going to be active here as we head into the late part of the week, into the weekend. It's the northern plains. Our next wild card, as we talk about areas further off to the south, is going to be a little storm system, perhaps bringing some showers and storms to the central plains. You see it right here over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Otherwise, we watch early next week for the development of an area of low pressure across the northern plains. This on the GFS model. The European model does have this as well around Monday or Tuesday of next week, perhaps bringing another frontal boundary through the central U.S. before. This is where we head into that more active pattern. Again, details unclear. This is something we'll have to talk about. Eric will mention again Thursday morning, and then I'll be able to cover it more in depth with our Corn Belt forecast on Friday. But it looks cooler and quieter until we get into perhaps next week, shifting to a pattern that's more active across this region, with a couple storm systems perhaps tracking through. So we'll hold off on details, but this is something we're kind of watching for next week, perhaps turning warmer and more active across the Corn Belt after we have a quiet end to this week. Day by day, 24-hour rainfall chance here from the GFS. This will spell the pattern out once more as we just look for ways to kind of visualize this. As we head through the day on Tuesday, here's our frontal boundary, bringing chances for showers and storms to the region. Quiet mid to late week across the Corn Belt there, with high pressure sitting over the region. As we get into the weekend, perhaps watching for some showers and storms across the central plains here Saturday and Sunday. Before we head into the next week, watching this Monday storm system perhaps developing across the northern plains. And then you're going to see the precipitation chances begin to increase across this region as I start playing out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of next week. So this is really a mid next week pattern that we're going to have to watch, perhaps bringing active weather back to the central plains and the Midwest. The GFS total precipitation, you're going to see it again, watching this area for some precipitation to pop up here as we head through the early part of this loop. And then you're going to see not much happening across this region until we get to the very end. You'll see the more frequent corridor for precipitation off to the north. So let's go ahead and hit play on this. There's the Tuesday frontal boundary, quiet through the middle part of the week, going into the weekend. And then we get into next week. Now we're starting to see things kind of unfold across the region again. So we'll play it once more, getting into the end of this week, the weekend, and now perhaps turning active as we head into the next week. But across this region, you're seeing it pretty quiet for a big chunk of that loop. Now the NBM, National Blended Model, one more way to take a look at this. Going to see the similar look here, that Tuesday frontal boundary quiet until we get into the end of the loop. You're seeing it more active. This is taking us through the middle part of next week through Thursday morning. That's where you certainly see the Dakotas into the upper Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, North and South Dakota going to be the winners in terms of more frequent opportunities for precipitation over the next week. But as we head into the period here beginning mid next week, talking about September 10th through maybe the 15th, that's when I start to think maybe we start to turn more active across the region off to the south here, the Central Plains, into the Eastern Corn Belt. Your temperature anomalies here just to finish us off. We'll take a look at the cooler weather that comes in here, and then you're going to see the pattern change right there as we head into the middle part of next week. Let's kind of take a look at it once more. We see the cooler air come in on the backside of this storm system here. It's going to be, again, cooler, less humid for the middle to later part of this week. It's as we head into the weekend and then early next week. Here you go. We're still looking at cooler temperatures here all the way in through the weekend. We're at September 18th now, looking at Sunday, still holding on to that cooler and less humid air mass. But then we get into the middle part of next week, getting into around September 10th, September 11th, September 12th, starting to watch some of that warmth build back into parts of the Midwest, areas that haven't seen a lot of warmth as we talk about really the last month plus. Your high temperatures for the next 5 days are going to see things quite divided. High temperatures in the 50s across parts of North Dakota, Minnesota, and the UP of Wisconsin, UP of Michigan. Wisconsin, I was going to say not much warmer, in the mid 60s to the lower 80s, but this is where we see the front. And off to the south of that, where we're warmer, still more unstable, that's where we see the chance for, again, maybe some strong storms popping up within this region here as we head through Tuesday afternoon and evening. This is supposed to be a high temperature forecast, and here I am talking again about thunderstorm risks. Here you go, Wednesday, that front makes its way through, cooler off to the north across this region. Here's your high temperatures for Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday, seeing one more shot of cooler air. Your high temperatures Saturday in the 50s and 60s, anywhere from the Dakotas into Minnesota, Wisconsin, and parts of Iowa, northern Illinois, and northern Indiana. As always, Eric Snodgrass will have an in-depth look at the evolution of the next 1 to 2 weeks in our Thursday morning ag forecast video, and I'll have your next check-in with the Corn Belt region on Friday morning. Have a great day.